I'm Ant.
And I'm Dick.
And this is
Saturday Night Live.
Takeaway. Mr. Robinson, it's takeaway. Saturday Night Takeaway. And this isn't even Saturday Night Takeaway, boys and girls. This is
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday morning.
Wednesday
morning.
We don't even know what day it is. Right then, this is your English lesson with Mr. Robinson and
Mr. Saville. 2 teachers for the price of 1. Excellent stuff.
first job. You need to become sentence doctors. So we have, well, there could be 1, there could be 2 sentences here. You need to correct it. Pause the video. Off you go. Wow, that was quick. Okay, for the sentences, Mr. Saville's going to explain.
That's it.
What was wrong?
Obviously, there's quite a few mistakes over there. So here's one I corrected earlier. Let's have a look at what we should have done. The very first mistake in your previous sentence was Mr. was spelt incorrectly. We've been using the abbreviation Mr. Secondly, we were missing a couple of capital letters from the start. First one, because we need one at the start of a sentence, but also because it's a proper noun. It's a name. So, capital M in there, and a capital T for Twit, because it's Mr. Twit. It's his name. Next one, Mr. Twit was a foul man. That makes sense on its own. So that's where we need a full stop. First full stop goes in just there. After that, if we've got a full stop, we know we need another capital letter. In he goes. Then, the next mistake, we had a couple of adjectives next to each other. And we practiced it. We have 2 adjectives next to each other. We need to put a comma in there. You can see it twice in this sentence. He had a stinky, comma, smelly fish stuck in his gross, comma, grizzly beard. And there was the last 2 mistakes was beard was spelt incorrectly. We should be using the phoneme EA. And then there's a full stop at the end. Hope you spotted them all. Next, Mr. Robinson.
Okay, next up. So, in our last lesson, we were doing a setting description. We had to describe that awful garden with thistles and dead trees. We also had to describe the work shed and the house with no windows. Okay, next chapter will be read by Mr. Saville.
And this chapter is called Hug Tight Sticky Glue. And I'm going to read it in a normal voice. Once a week, on Wednesdays, the Twits had bird pie for supper. Mr. Twit caught the birds and Mrs. Twit cooked them. Mr. Twit was good at catching birds. On the day before bird pie, he would put the ladder up against the big dead tree and climb into the branches with a bucket of glue and a paintbrush. The glue he used was called Hug Tight, and it was stickier than any other glue in the world. He would paint it along the tops of the branches and then go away. As the sun went down, birds would fly in from all around to roost for the night in the big dead tree. They didn't know, the poor things, that the branches were smeared with horrible Hug Tight. The moment they landed on a branch, their feet stuck, and that was that. The next morning, which was bird pie day, Mr. Twit would climb up the ladder and grab all of the wretched birds that were stuck into the tree. It didn't matter what kind they were. Song thrushes, blackbirds, sparrows, crows, little jenny wrens, robins, anything. They all went into the pot for Wednesday's bird pie supper. And there's some pictures there for you to have a look at. The birds, first of all, stuck in the tree, and secondly, the bird pie. Okay. So,
Today's lesson, do we have a special guest coming today?
I think we
Mr.
do,
Saville?
Mr. Robinson. I think we do.
Just go see if they're here.
Today's lesson, just before our special guest arrives, is focused on learning to use speech marks. It's something we have practiced before, so I'll just adjust that so you can see the yellow. The learning objective is to use speech marks in your writing. Obviously, we're going to move on to some story writing, so this is really useful. So let's have a look what Mrs. Twit says, and then we'll talk about how that can be used with speech marks.
I don't like
grotty children. I don't like nosy, grotty children.
Mrs. Twit, girls and boys, give her a clap. Lovely stuff, Mr. Robinson. Okay, let's have a look at that sentence that Mrs. Twit said. She said, I don't like nosy, grotty children. Well, first of all, good stuff. Look at that comma between our two adjectives. When we're writing speech, Mr. Robinson, do you want to hold this? When we're writing speech, it's really important we think what our speaker says and to write that down first of all. And then we can show the reader what the words spoken by the speaker were. And the way we do that is by adding speech marks. So they go a 66 at the front, at the beginning, before the speaker starts speaking. And then there's a 99 when they have finished speaking. So there we can go, we see it. I don't like nosy, grotty children.
And as you notice, I like to think of the 66 and 99 as hands, and they're keeping this whole sentence locked inside. We have our capital letter inside here, and also our punctuation is inside these inverted commas, our speech marks.
There you go. Okay. Talking about punctuation, I'll come to this in a moment. This full stop here, it doesn't belong here, but I'll explain that in a moment. Because the next thing we need to do is make sure we tell our reader who has spoken. And in this case, it was Mrs. Twit, so we'd say, said Mrs. Twit afterwards.
Oh, we can do better, can't we?
Exactly, Mr. Robinson, of course we can. If we think about what Mrs. Twit's doing, she's not just saying that, she's kind of grumbling about that. So let's put that into past tense and write grumbled Mrs. capital letter Twit. And now we need a full stop because that is the end of our sentence. But there's one more job we need to do. Coming back to this full stop here. If we leave a full stop there, it kind of looks like we've got two sentences. And we have in a way, because we've got Mrs. Twit's sentence and we've got our sentence. But our sentence is this whole thing. So what we want to do is not confuse our reader with that. And we put a comma in here. So it gives us that pause, but it lets the reader know that our sentence is continuing. So it sounds like this.
I don't like nosy, grotty children.
Grumbled Mrs. Twit.
And there you go, boys and girls. That's how we punctuate sentences with speech marks. We'd like you to have a go at home now. The activities you'll find uploaded on your Seesaw post.
Thank you for joining us.